Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear viewers and listeners, Assalamu alaikum. In this monologue, I'm going to discuss an important social relationship that concerns all of us directly or indirectly. This social relationship is called the institution of marriage. There are many myths and practices that have evolved around this relationship on the basis of religious, cultural, societal, and psychological factors. However, a dispassionate and neutral study of the glorious Quran reveals that many such practices are either never mentioned in the Quran or they are in direct conflict with injunctions of Quran. Therefore, in order to understand the true spirit of the institution of marriage, it is incumbent upon us to refer to the glorious Quran for guidance. The objective of this monologue is to enlighten the audience about the purpose of marriage, 2. Essentials of marriage, 3. Relations with which marriage may not be contracted, 4. Mutual rights and obligations of the spouses, 5. The issue of polygamy and polyandry, 6. Economic issues in this relationship, and other related matters in the light of wisdom provided by the glorious Quran. Marriage is a social contract between spouses, that is, husband and wife, to live together and enjoy mutual benefits and discharge mutual obligations as ordained in the Quran. The specific purposes of marriage as ordained in the Quran may be summarized in the following words. 1. Human beings are social animals, so they cannot live in isolation. The institution of marriage provides an honorable relationship between two sexes to live in harmony and tranquility. This fact is explained in chapter 30, verse 21 in the following words. Another of his signs is that he created spouses from among yourselves, for you to live within tranquility. He ordained love and kindness between you. 2. Sex is a basic instinct for all human beings. Another purpose of marriage is to provide a legitimate means of enjoying sex with your mate within the bounds set by God. Chapter 2, verse 223 of Quran reads, Your women are your tilth, so go into your tilth whichever way you like. This fact is reiterated in a different manner in chapter 2, verse 187 in the following words, Your women are a garment for you, and you are a garment for them. 3. Human beings are fond of children in whom they see their own reflection. They love and pamper their children and make provisions and a lot of sacrifices for them. Chapter 64, verse 15 reads, Your possessions and your children are a test, but with God is a splendid reward. The institution of marriage provides legal and ethical basis to bear children and raise them as part of one household. Children also serve as a bond for strengthening the marriage relationship between the spouses. The two essentials of marriage are specifically mentioned in the glorious Quran. Chapter 4, verse 24 of Quran reads, Women are lawful to you, so long as you seek them in marriage with gifts from your property, looking for wedlock rather than fornication. If you wish to enjoy women through marriage, give them their bride gift. This is obligatory. Though, if you should choose mutually, after fulfilling this obligation, to do otherwise with the bride gift, you will not be blamed. God is all-knowing and all-wise. This verse is the cornerstone for describing two key essentials of marriage in the sight of God. The two essentials are 1. Intention to enter into wedlock rather than fornication. Intention plays a crucial role in the sight of God because marriage is a social contract or pledge that both spouses undertake before God. Chapter 16, verse 91 reads, Fulfill any pledge you make in God's name, and do not break oaths after you have sworn them. For you have made God your surety. God knows everything you do. So if anyone marries a woman for fornication, that is only for sexual enjoyment for a certain period, but he has no intention to maintain the marriage relationship in the foreseeable future, he has committed the sin of fornication in the sight of God. Although Such marriage may be witnessed by a large number of people as a social event. 2. Payment of bride gift or dower. As already explained earlier, marriage is a civil contract. Like any contract, it must include an element of consideration, that is, price of a contract paid by each party. The dower, in cash or kind, is an obligatory consideration on the part of husband for marrying a woman, while the consideration on the part of woman is her commitment to remain loyal to the husband and let him enjoy sexual relationship with her. So determination of the amount of dower at the time of marriage is obligatory on the part of husband, although the wife may later remit part of it, or husband may increase the amount of dower at his sweet will. Another question that is often asked is whether the marriage contract may be in writing or it may be oral. As already explained earlier, writing is not an essential element of a marriage contract. However, a written marriage contract may be helpful to resolve subsequent disputes between the spouses relating to their individual rights and obligations. Such disputes may cover areas like determination of the dower amount, its mode of payment, any maintenance cost that husband has to bear, any right of divorce conferred upon the wife, and so on. The glorious Quran advises writing of a financial contract like a debt relationship to avoid any later dispute. Chapter 2, verse 282 of Quran reads, "You who believe, when you contract a debt for a stated term, put it down in writing. Have a scribe write it down justly between you." Since the marriage contract is of long duration and it also has financial elements in it relating to payment of dower and maintenance costs payable to the wife, so if it is put in a written form as an evidence, there is no harm in it. Such a practice is in line with wisdom provided by the glorious Quran to resolve all marriage related issues between the spouses that may crop up later. Husbands usually take payment of bride gift as a favor to wife, and on many occasions the husband may try to take back the dower from wife if he divorces her. However, this behavior is a great sin in the sight of God. We must remember that after honest intention to marry, payment of bride gift or dower is the most important element of marriage in the sight of God. This fact is highlighted in chapter 4, verses 20 and 21 of the Quran in the following words: "If you wish to replace one wife with another, do not take any of her bride gift back, even if you have given her a great amount of gold. How could you take it when this is unjust and a blatant sin? How could you take it when you have lain with each other and they have taken a solemn pledge from you?" These verses prove that once a husband has paid certain amount or thing to the wife as a bride gift or dower, he is not allowed to take it back under any circumstances after consummation of marriage, even if the dower is as expensive as a great amount of gold. The husband is also not allowed to take it back even when he divorces the wife. God declares any such act as a blatant sin on the part of husband. Does Quran permit temporary marriage? As already explained earlier, marriage is a social contract between two spouses to live as husband and wife before the society in the foreseeable future. The term foreseeable future implies that at the time of entering into a marriage contract, both the spouses have the intention to maintain that relationship as a permanent institution under normal circumstances. Such a relationship may only come to an end if the normal circumstances, that is, harmony between the spouses, are seriously compromised due to any significant reason. This is the essence of marriage as explained in various verses of the Quran. For example, in verse 24 of chapter 4 of Quran, the phrase, "So long as you seek them in marriage with gifts from your property, looking for wedlock rather than fornication," clearly implies that any temporary relationship based on sexual desire only is fornication in the sight of God. Now we examine the elements of a temporary marriage. It becomes evident that there is no permanence in such a relationship. At the very outset, both the parties know that this relationship is for a definite or limited period of time. The only intention is to enjoy physical relationship during this temporary period. Besides, with its temporary status, such a marriage may seriously compromise on the issue of birth and maintenance of a child. Therefore, a temporary marriage in any manner and form is nothing less than fornication or adultery, and it is a grave sin in the sight of God. Another important question is, with which female relations marriage is not allowed? The answer to this question is provided in chapter 4, verses 22 to 24 in the following words. Do not marry women that your fathers married, with the exception of what is past. This is indeed a shameful thing to do, loathsome and leading to evil. You are forbidden to take as wives your mothers, daughters, sisters, paternal and maternal aunts, the daughters of brothers and daughters of sisters, your milk mothers and milk sisters, your wives' mothers, the stepdaughters in your care, those born of women with whom you have consummated marriage. If you have not consummated the marriage, then you will not be blamed. Wives of your begotten sons, two sisters simultaneously, with the exception of what is past. God is most forgiving and merciful. Women already married, other than your slaves. God has ordained all this for you. Other women are lawful to you, so long as you seek them in marriage with gifts from your property, looking for wedlock rather than fornication. In the light of these verses, a man is not allowed to marry the following categories of women: 1. Wives of fathers; 2. Mothers; 3. Daughters; 4. Sisters; 5. Paternal and maternal aunts; 6. Daughters of brothers and sisters; 7. Milk mothers and milk sisters; 8. Mother of wives; 9. Stepdaughters of your wives with whom you have consummated marriage; 10. Wives of begotten sons; 11. Two sisters as wives at the same time; 12. An already married woman. Except these 12 categories, all other women are lawful for marriage in the sight of God. Another important question that may be asked by people is whether marriage with divorced wife of adopted son is allowed in Islam. Quran explicitly states that adopted sons are not your real sons. Rather, they are your Muslim brothers. Chapter 33 verse 5 reads, Name your adopted sons after their real fathers. This is more equitable in God's eyes. If you do not know who their fathers are, they are your brothers in religion and proteges. So adopted sons are not like real sons, and there is no bar to marry their divorced wives in the sight of God. For example, chapter 33 verse 37 and 38 of Quran direct Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, to marry the divorced wife of his adopted son Zaid in the following words. When Zaid no longer wanted her, we gave her to you in marriage, so that there might be no fault in believers marrying the wives of their adopted sons after they no longer wanted them. God's command must be carried out. The Prophet is not at fault for what God has ordained for him. This was God's practice with those who went before. God's command must be fulfilled. This verse makes it explicitly clear that marrying the divorced wives of adopted sons was even allowed to Muslims of the past generations, and it is not a sin in the sight of God. Now I discuss mutual rights and obligations of spouses. The spouses in a marriage relationship represent two sexes of the same species, that is, human beings. However, man is a stronger sex, while woman is a weaker sex in physical terms. Besides, both of them exhibit different human traits due to their physical composition and different roles in life. Therefore, the rights and obligations of husband and wife may be determined keeping in view their individual traits and roles in life. Chapter 4, verse 19 of Quran highlights rights and obligations of men and women in the following words. O you who believe, it is not permitted for you to inherit women against their will, and do not coerce them in order to take away some of what you had given them, unless they commit a proven adultery. And live with them in kindness. If you dislike them, it may be that you dislike something in which God has placed much good. This verse explicitly states that men are not allowed to inherit women as their wives against their will. Marriage must be done with the consent of a free woman. Once she has consented for marriage, no permission of her guardian is required, as it happens in the case of a female slave. Similarly, if a husband has given anything to his wife as a gift, he should not take it back forcibly unless she has committed adultery. Finally, every man must live with kindness towards the female sex. So Quran directs men to be kind and sympathetic towards women due to their weak physical status. Similarly, chapter 4 verse 34 of Quran reads, men are the protectors and maintainers of women, as God has given some of them an advantage over others, and because they spend out of their wealth. The good women are obedient, guarding what God would have them guard. As for those from whom you fear disloyalty, admonish them and abandon them in their beds, then strike them. But if they obey you, do not transgress against them. God is sublime great. This verse imposes rights and obligations on both sexes. Men are declared as protectors and maintainers of women due to their physical strength and their trait of spending on women. Women are reminded to remain obedient to their men and guard their chastity and honor. However, if a woman shows disloyalty, then man is allowed to punish her in a moderate manner to set the things right. This right is conferred upon a man due to the fact that he is the head of the family and a woman as his wife is his deputy. So she should watch the interest of her husband like any good deputy. If she deliberately disobeys her husband, she must be reprimanded by the husband to protect the institution of family. Another question may be, does Quran permit more than one marriage at a time to spouses? Bigamy, that is the act of entering into a marriage with one person while still legally married to another, may take two forms. One is called polyandry, where a woman may have more than one husband, and polygamy, where the man may have more than one wife. Polygamy and polyandry are mutually exclusive relationships, implying that either a man may have multiple wives or a woman may have multiple husbands at the same time. Islam does not allow polyandry because the specific verses of Quran only talk about polygamy that precludes the option of polyandry per se. For example, chapter 4 verse 3 of Quran reads, if you fear that you will not deal fairly with orphan girls, you may marry whichever other women seem good to you, 2, 3 or 4. If you fear that you cannot be equitable to them, then marry only one, or your slaves, that is more likely to make you avoid bias. This verse allows a man to marry up to 4 wives at the same time, provided he can be equitable towards all of them, a pretty hard condition to fulfill by majority of men. So polygamy is never allowed as a free right for men. It can only be exercised when equity can be administered between all wives. Otherwise, a man should be content with one wife only to avoid accountability on the judgment day. Further, since this verse is about marriage that can only take place between a man and a woman, so by allowing only men to have more than one wife, it precludes the possibility that a woman may also have more than one husband. The silence about the right of a female to have more than one husband in this verse is equivalent to a prohibition of that right. Similarly, chapter 4 verse 129 of Quran reads, you will never be able to treat your wives with equal fairness, however you may desire to do so, but do not ignore one wife altogether, leaving her suspended. If you make amends and remain conscious of God, He is most forgiving and merciful. This verse further puts a severe restriction on the right of man to exercise polygamy. The phrase leaving her suspended implies that there should be no significant difference between treatment of wives in terms of physical, social, and financial needs. The term equitable does not imply absolute equality between two wives. Similarly, the phrase that a man will never be able to treat wives with equal fairness is based on the fact that what is equitable may vary between a wife and a husband due to their personal perspectives. Therefore, it would be extremely difficult for a man to satisfy more than one wife on every front of life. This may lead to family disputes and disturbance in life. Since man is the head of family and he is responsible for maintaining harmony in family life, he may be answerable before God for any lapse on his part in a polygamous situation. All these facts prove that Quran only allows polygamy in very restricted situations and not as a matter of right to a husband. Another related issue may be the degree of physical relationship between husband and wife. Islam is a code of life and it expects natural behavior from all human beings in every walk of life. Sex, with its multiple attributes between spouses, is a recognized act in Islam. However, God in His eternal wisdom provides guidance to mankind in this matter also, so that a moderate and ethical course of action may be adopted by spouses while performing sex. Chapter 2, verse 222 of Quran reads, "They asked you, Prophet, about menstruation. Say, menstruation is a painful condition, so keep away from women during it. Do not approach them until they are cleansed. When they are cleansed, you may approach them as God has ordained. God loves those who turn to Him, and He loves those who keep themselves clean." This verse clearly prohibits sexual intercourse between spouses during the menstrual period of females. This is due to the fact that during menstrual period a female does not enjoy sex due to associated pain and unhygienic physical condition. So a husband should never perform sexual intercourse with his wife during her menstrual period because it is a sin in the sight of God. The degree of physical relationship is further explained in chapter 2 verse 223 of Quran in the following words: "Your wives are your tilth, so go into your tilth whichever way you like, and send something good ahead for yourself. Be mindful of God, remember that you will meet Him." This verse highlights the fact that wives are like a tilth or field for cultivation. So men are allowed to approach their wives in any manner that is ethical and in line with the consent of husband and wife. This may include both foreplay and intercourse that is agreed between the spouses with their free consent. Another related issue may be who is the breadwinner amongst two spouses. The historical evidence suggests that due to strong physical and psychological composition of man, he is primarily deemed to be the breadwinner in a family. However, there is no prohibition if this role is assumed by a woman due to peculiar circumstances of the family. For example, if wife is better qualified or husband is sick, then wife may become the breadwinner. Islam is a pragmatic religion, so while describing individual roles of two sexes, it only suggests deemed role of a breadwinner, but do not prohibit that this role cannot be performed by a woman. We also know that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, first wife was a merchant lady, and Prophet married her and maintained cordial relationship with her in spite of her role as a breadwinner. Chapter 4, verse 34 of Quran reads, "Men are the protectors and maintainers of women, because God has given the one more strength than the other, and because they support them from their means." This verse of the Quran highlights the fact that men normally support women from their means, but this verse or any other verse of Quran does not prohibit a woman to become the breadwinner if the circumstances so demand. Looking from a different perspective, the Quran commands that both husband and wife shall inherit from each other's property, a point that will be explained later. So, if they can inherit from each other's property, how could they be stopped to enjoy income support from each other? Therefore, there are no hard and fast rules as per injunctions of Quran that who should be a breadwinner in a family. Both husband and wife may become breadwinner if they so desire, because they are the wheels of the same carriage, that is household, and it is they who have to make sure that they should earn reasonable income to maintain their family on the basis of circumstances and their individual capacities. People often ask whether spouses can inherit from each other's property. Chapter 4, verse 12 of Quran clearly explains that both spouses are entitled to inherit from each other's property. The verse reads, "You inherit half of what your wives leave if they have no children. If they have children, you inherit a quarter, after payment of any bequest or debts. If you have no children, your wife's share is a quarter. If you have children, your wives get an eighth, after payment of any bequest or debts." This verse sets the rule of inheritance between spouses. It explains that husband will inherit half of the property of his wife if there are no children. In case of children, the share of husband is 1 over 4 or a quarter. Similarly, a wife will inherit 1 over 4 or quarter from husband's property if there are no children. In case of children, her share is 1/8. In all cases, inheritance share will be available only after payment of bequest and debts of the deceased person. The glorious Quran also commands a husband to make a bequest for his widow to ensure that she does not suffer in the hands of other family members due to financial constraints after her husband's death. This fact is explained in chapter 2, verse 240 of Quran in the following words: "If any of you die and leave widows, make a bequest for them, a year's maintenance and no expulsion from their homes." This bequest is over and above her inheritance share as explained in verse 12 of chapter 4. So Quran makes generous financial provisions for wives. People may also be concerned whether marriage with non-Muslims is permissible or not. Quran prohibits marriage of Muslim males and females with polytheists and disbeliever males and females under all circumstances. This fact is explained in chapter 2, verse 221 of Quran in the following words: "Do not marry idolatresses until they believe. A believing slave woman is certainly better than an idolatress, even though she may please you. And do not give your women in marriage to idolaters until they believe. A believing slave is certainly better than an idolater, even though he may please you. Such people call you to the fire, while God calls you to the garden and forgiveness by his leave. He makes his messages clear to people so that they may bear them in mind." In the light of wisdom provided by this verse of Quran, it is clear that a believing slave, both male and female, is better for marriage than a rich disbeliever person. Marrying a disbeliever is a great sin in the sight of God. On another occasion, the glorious Quran allows marriage of a Muslim male with females of people of the book, that is Christians, Jews, Sabians, and Magians. However, a Muslim woman is not allowed to marry a man of people of the book. This fact is explained in chapter 5, verse 5 of Quran in the following words: "Today, all good things have been made lawful for you. The food of the people of the book is lawful for you, as your food is lawful for them. So are chaste believing women as well as chaste women of the people who were given the scripture before you, as long as you have given them their bride gifts and married them, not taking them as lovers or secret mistresses." This verse makes it clear that marriage with chaste women of people of the book is permissible after payment of the bride gift or dower. Non-mention of men of people of the book in this verse implies prohibition of such a marriage for believing women. People may also ask whether marriage with a slave is allowed in Islam or not. Well, Islam is a compassionate and equitable religion that allows marriage of a believing male or female even with a slave female and male. This fact is highlighted in chapter 2, verse 221 of Quran in the following words: Do not marry idolatresses until they believe. A believing slave woman is certainly better than an idolatress, even though she may please you. And do not give your women in marriage to idolaters until they believe. A believing slave is certainly better than an idolater, even though he may please you. Permissibility of marriage with a slave female is also confirmed in verse 25 of chapter 4 in the following words: If any of you does not have the means to marry a believing free woman, then marry a believing slave. God knows best your faith. You are part of the same family, so marry them with their people's consent and their proper bride gift. Make them married women, not idolatresses or lovers. If they commit adultery when they are married, their punishment will be half that of a free woman. This verse also explains the rules for marrying a female slave. These include payment of the bride gift and permission of female slave's guardian. Besides, this verse also highlights the fact that since the rights and obligations of a slave are half, therefore if a female slave wife commits adultery, her punishment will be half, that is only 50 lashes. I conclude my monologue on the institution of marriage with a prayer that Allah Almighty may bless this effort. Please do subscribe and share my channel for updates. It's absolutely free. Finally, do ask me questions to alleviate your concern about any related issue discussed in this monologue. Post your question in the comment section on my YouTube channel for a quick reply.